Government says the renewed intensity of Ghana's power crisis should lessen next week following the purchase of crude oil for thermal plants in Tema in the Greater Accra region. Now, government explains the crude oil will need treatment to remove metallic content for safe use. The treatment, which takes a week, is expected to be complete over the weekend. Meanwhile, the Volta River Authority, VRA, has described as realistic the assurances by the Power Minister to resolve the power crisis by end of the year. The VRA says it is playing its part to make this happen. So how sure are we that the crisis will lessen as promised by the Energy Minister, considering the fact that oil production company Tullow says gas supply will not be restored for another 2 weeks following the breakdown of the FPSO, which plays a critical role in the supply of gas? But should we party because VRA is assuring the crisis will totally be resolved by end of the year, looking at some deadlines that were not met? This is today's big story, and my name is Aisha Ibrahim. Now, the worsening situation has triggered renewed frustrations with businesses bearing the brunt more. Crude oil is the last resort as a source of power because it is expensive and constitutes a drain on government finances. But the shutting down of a Tuabu gas plant in the western region, truncating the supply of cheap gas, has made reliance on crude necessary. Now, the expensive resource will be used to fire Tico plant in the Abuazi Thermal enclave in the western region. The Volta River Authority says it is working to bring in some 258 megawatts by November 2015.
Stakeholder in the kind of business we run. I mean, we know that our operations affect every single Ghanaian in this country who enjoys electricity. And when our consumers are having problems, some of the people they go to is the media. And so we believe that it's important we get our media to understand the situation in which we are. But not just that, but to go beyond that and know what we are doing to solve the problems. So this tour basically was to show you the new projects that we're running. And so we took you to Tema, we took you to Pong, we also took you to Akose to go see the retrofit project we're doing, which will increase reliability for the Pong Dam and also expand or extend the life cycle of that plant. I mean, the plant has run for about 34 years, and the retrofit will get it to run for another 30 to 35 years. So we thought that it is important Ghanaians get to know that we're working to solve the problem we are in now, the crisis in which we are. And we could only do that through the big media stakeholders that we have. And that is why we brought you here. I think you've seen it yourself. The new projects that we are adding will give us anything close to 260 megawatts additional, something we don't have, we're just about to have. And the good news is that we get that power come on stream this year. You know, I mean, before the end of the year, they've told you, I mean, in KTPP, you're looking at October, November, and then in Tema Thermal, you're looking at November. So pretty good news that I think Ghanaians deserve to know. It's important. It is one thing having a problem. The second thing, also knowing how the problem is being solved.
Let's get back here in the studio where news editor Israel Lai is joining us in the conversation. Good evening, Israel. You have been touring with the VRA, and they're saying that it's realistic we're going to end the power crisis by end of this year. On what basis are they saying that?
Right, so first of all, it's the Prime Minister who said that this is going to, or he's always maintained that they're going to end. He believes the power crisis will come to an end by the end of this year. And if it doesn't happen, he's quitting the job. I mean, he's giving up the job.
Yes, definitely.
So the VRA essentially today says they showed us a number of things that they're doing. And one of them, or two of the critical things they're doing, is that they're adding additional generation. And additional generation, which they're saying should be available by latest by November this year. So first of all, is a Siemens plant, which is in Tema, and it's in the power enclave in Tema. Siemens plant is going to produce about 38 megawatts. And they're saying this 30 megawatts should become available by November. Now, apart from the Siemens plant, then there's also the Kpong thermal plant. The Kpong thermal plant has or can make available 220 megawatts. Right. And that, they're saying, should become available by October. So if they look at the two of them, they're saying that it gives us, what, 258 megawatts. Right. Technically, you can get just about 250 megawatts out of that. We currently have a shortfall of around 600 megawatts. Right. So if you look at the 258, and then you also look at the car power ship that's coming on board with about 240 megawatts that we're told should become available sometime by September. Right. Then you're inching close to 600 megawatts. Right. Now, what then would need is that we can have some reserve margin, which reserve margin will be brought on board by TICO. Now, TICO, which has been down as a result of the Tuabo gas plant, which was shut down, is currently away with 330 megawatts thereabout. Already. Now, they have crude oil available, which they say should fire the plant by the end of, by this weekend. Yeah. Now, that 330 megawatts, if you add all that to the 600 we're talking about that's likely to come, then we're looking at a safe reserve margin of somewhere around 200 megawatts. The calculation
looks juicy, and if we could get all of that on board, that would be fantastic.
Yes,
but
indeed.
Let's see how easy, because I have Ishmael Aka. He's from Africa Center for Energy Policy. Good evening. Many thanks for your time. And I also have Kojo Poko on the other line. He's also an energy expert. Good evening, gentlemen.
Hi, how are you?
I appreciate your time on today's big story. Let me start with you, Kojo Poku. The VRA intends to bring in some 250 megawatts by November 2015. How easy will this be?
Well, it's not. If that's the word if that's the question you want to ask, it's not easy, because you see, most of the times what we've had happening is that anytime some plants are meant to come on board, others are also being shut down. So that has been the problem with VRA from the past 2 years. You know, every certain 1,000 hours, 18,000 or 1,800 hours, right, some plants have to be shut down for maintenance. Now, by the time they shut the plants down, they realize that they need some parts replacement. Okay. Now, with all these new plants that are coming online, nobody is doubting the fact that we might have installed capacity by the end of the year. Whether the installed capacity can generate what we need is another problem. Right. You know, so when people are saying that, oh, we're going to have this plant is going to come on by November, that plant is going to come on by December, yes, those plants are being built. But would they be able to generate the electricity that we need with the fuel and the gas problems and the HFO, which we are supposed to get, and where we are getting it from? Nobody knows. So to me, if you ask how difficult, very difficult.
Well, I'll have you hold and also gauge the mood of Ishmael Aka. Ishmael, this level of erratic power supply, it follows actually the announcement by Tallow that there's a breakdown of the FPSO. And we're told that crude oil is very expensive, even though the minister has assured us they're trying to get some crude oil to power our generators. But does it mean that there's going to be more crisis for us now that FPSO is broken down?
I believe that before the breakdown, we saw a little improvement in power supply.
Exactly.
Just after the breakdown, I think things are getting back to the 24 of 12 on.
More than that in some areas.
Places they are even having worse than the 24. Right. So I think it's getting worse. But the situation is now, we rely on natural gas, and yes, Nigeria is giving us problems. The FPSO is now. I don't think that looking at the current price of crude oil, around 53, average of $53 per barrel, it is that too much that we cannot rely on it, and I think by this time we should be having live crude oil to power some of these plants instead of still hearing the promises and going to. Because I think we've heard enough over the last 2 years.
Well, Ishmael, let me come back to the studio, and after that, I'll gauge your mood also whether we can sustain it for 2 weeks whilst we wait for the FPSO to come back. Israel, let's look at the levels of the Akosombo Dam and also the Akosombo Dam. What levels are they now?
All right. Before we come to that, I'd just like to agree with something that one of the callers, one of the experts we have on the line said. He's talking about the fact that yes, we have installed capacity. We need to be sure that we can make fuel available to these plants so they can fire. And he also talks about the fact that at some point in time, a number of the plants, as some come on board, a number of the plants have to also go up for scheduled maintenance. Right. Now, if that scheduled maintenance alone will happen, usually that scheduled maintenance shouldn't take too long for the plants to come on board.
But sometimes we see that.
Yeah, but critically, what it just means is that we are having the deficit gotten rid of. Okay. And it's important to have the installed capacity, and that installed capacity, so long as it's being put in place, that's fair and good. Okay. Now, let's come back to the issue about Akosombo Dam. Yes, we are the Akosombo Dam. Yeah. And the Akosombo Dam, the water level there, we know for some few weeks now, we're having an issue with it. It keeps on going down, and we're wondering when it's going to come up. Yeah. Now, if it's going down, it means you can't generate as much electricity as you can from it. If Akosombo was working fine, we probably wouldn't be in this situation. But that's what we're dealing with. The officials are saying that, interestingly, there's been some improvement. The level of the water level is not rising, but the decline is slowing down. Okay. It's slowing down to the extent that they are now able to put on 5 units. Okay. 5 units generating some 600 megawatts. It's dangerous, yes, but they're also saying that because Etuabo had to shut down and Tico is not operating, then they had to fall on Akosombo until the situation at Tico improves, and then they can.
What relief does Bone bring?
Now, Bone, at the moment, what they're doing is retrofitting. And retrofitting is also crucial, because if you don't do the retrofitting, the efficiency levels that you're getting from the dam diminishes, and it gets to a point where it doesn't make sense to actually run it. So the retrofitting they're doing is changing several of the parts to make the plant more efficient. So it's not going to add additional generation, except that it assures you that you have Bone working for you.
Let me get on to the phone lines once again. Kojopoku, we are supposed to power our plants now with crude oil, which is much expensive and having a toll on government. And are we able to sustain this for the next 2 weeks whilst we wait for FPSO to come back on board?
I don't know where they're going to find the money from. We know as much that the government finances is not very healthy. I honestly don't know where the finance minister or the minister of finance is going to find the money for crude oil for 2 weeks. I want to stress something on what Mr. Lai just said. Did you say that Akosombo is low, but they are running 5 turbines? Because I don't think they are able to run 5 turbines. Because the full capacity of Akosombo is 1,025. 5 turbines, each runs 250. So that is how we have 125. Now, if the water level is low, I'll be surprised that if they are running all the turbines in Akosombo. Because Akosombo is a dam. If you don't let the water through those pipes, which basically goes into the generators, the water will stay in the dam. Okay. The reason the water is declining at a very low level, at a very low rate, is because they are running less of those turbines. If they put all 5 turbines on, the water will deplete quickly, because what you're using is that you are using up your reservoir to power the turbines. So the reason the reservoir is going down slower is because they are using less of the water to power the turbines. Now, I think that is the right thing to do, to use the less of the water, so that when the water do go up, then they can now power all 5 of the turbines. But I don't think they are powering all 5 turbines as at present because of the level of the water.
Okay, so VRA is giving us fresh assurances that they're working round the clock to ensure we achieve the deadline of December 2015 in resolving our power challenges. Should we put our hope in the VRA, even though technically things don't seem to look right?
Well, I have said that deadline, you see, everybody is now trying to play the let's and wait game and if it will happen.
Right.
I honestly think the Ministry of Energy, the Ministry of Power has dealt a wrong hand in that approach. The reason I say that is this. Some months ago, when Honorable Donko took the position of Power Minister, what some of us asked for was constant interaction with the public to tell us what is happening, to tell us what the ECG timetable is supposed to be. If this engagement of the public is done and the education of the public is done, as some of the things that they've done by taking the media around to see what is going on. You see, if you engage the public and you tell the public what is happening, then they now dull down the expectation because they know of the problem.
Exactly.
Now, everybody is now putting this time bomb of December. Honestly, I don't think that it's going to go away in December. It is going to subside in December, yes.
Right.
But come January, February, March next year, we are going to have some shedding. But you see, everybody has now put that thing around their neck that as at 31st December, all our life is going to be on. And I don't think that's possible.
Okay, let's speak with Ishmael. Let's gauge Ishmael's mood on this. Ishmael, it's obvious that we cannot sustain even this 2 weeks of crude oil until FPSO comes back on board. And so does it mean we're going, can the situation get worse than it is now?
Yeah, well, I think that we need to find crude oil, at least to power. Yes, the government may not have money, or they are not telling us, so we don't know. However, I believe that there are certain steps that have been taken. Recently, we heard that the Memorandum of Understanding for the reverse flow of natural gas has been submitted to Cabinet. There are other instances. The problem has been that we are signing so many emergency power agreements. I think about 6 or 7 now, some of which are not even in public. And some of these emergency power budgets, I mean, you sell the power 50% higher or even higher than the normal electricity we generate. So it will come at a very high cost. The terms are at times unfriendly to the nation, and we are signing and signing and signing. So if some of the promises and some of these assurances come to pass, then that is fine. But I was expecting, as Kojo said, that by this time the Ministry of Power should come forward to tell us, even the initial two, the Ameri one and the Car Power one, what is the stage, the status of that project? When is it coming on board? But we just give December and we are just sitting down waiting for December. VRA 230 or 250 may come all right, but the other ones may not come. And even when they come, some machines may be down, some repairs should be done, maintenance work and all those things. So I think we should sit down, look at the problem holistically, look at the measures we've taken, tell the public where we've gotten to and how far we may get, so that at least we'll all be rest assured that this problem can be solved in December. Looking at the promises so far, I think that by December things will be fine. But there are instances, promises have been given and they were never fulfilled. So that is why people have become a little skeptical.
So there is a likelihood that the promise may not be fulfilled. But there have been calls also that the country is always relying on Akosombo. For instance, now Akosombo's level is not something we can rely on. It's critical. There is more also. Is it time that we start looking at other sources apart from hydroelectric power?
Yes, I think that it is time. But even with that, there's been some effort to look at natural gas. I think Quantum Gas is building an LNG plant, a regasification plant. And there are efforts to also get more regasification plants so that apart from the gas that is transported through the West African gas pipeline, we may get LNG facility also in Ghana. So we are looking more. And I think the direction, the medium to long-term direction has been natural gas. And I think that is very positive, especially looking at the 10 project that is coming, another one. So yes, we rely so much on hydro, and that is at the mercy of the weather. So I think it's good we look at natural gas now and other sources. The Zuma solar project is there. The problem has been that we don't know. They inaugurate, they go there, cut the sod, and we read so much about them. And we don't know the status of this project. That is the issue now.
I was about to say that all the projects, as for the projects, we have a lot of them going on. But as to when they can be completed so we can have the full benefit is what we are looking at. Kojo Poku, what would you recommend for Ghana as a long-term solution to our power crisis?
Solution, I think that Ghana is only 60 years or so to say. Ghana is not going to die at the age 100. My grandson is going to live in this country. Your grandson and daughters are going to live in this country.
Inshallah.
At present, we are looking at Ghana is not an industrialized nation.
Right.
We've only attained middle income status. We want to be an industrialized nation. Everybody that doesn't wish Ghana well will think that, oh, we're going to be like this forever. No, we don't want to be like this forever. And if we are going to be an industrialized nation where the aluminium plant, which sits in Tema, which is now a ghost yard, is going to work, Valco is going to work. We're going to have car manufacturing. We're going to have serious manufacturing in Ghana. Then we are talking about an excess of about 10,000 megawatts in the next 30, 40 years. Where are we going to get that? All the gas infrastructure and all the little 250, 300 here and 150 here of thermal that we are doing is not going to help. The government should have a very good, clear direction. Go to our funding partners to say, look, you guys should show us the way how you are doing it. In the UK, in the US, they are building nuclear as the way forward for the next 30, 40 years. I don't see why Ghana should wait and come last the next 40 years and we'll still be struggling in total darkness. I think for us to have proper industrialization, energy is the key.
Right.
And for us to have that, we need to take a step. Look, imagine what it was like in 1957 when Nkrumah decided to do Akosombo.
Right.
Okay? We need a president or a leader that will today decide to do something that in 50 years' time, my grandson will sit on this platform and say, imagine what it was like when that leader decided to do this project. So that is what we need. We don't need the piecemeal solution, which is 215. That is the short term. I think all these thermal plants and the gas projects are short term. Mini hydro, solar, they are all medium term. What is going to be Ghana's long term focus? The only thing that the Western world has identified that will work is nuclear. And it's the only thing that can give you the 6,000 megawatts, the 10,000 megawatts you need. It's very expensive, but in the long term, it has its adherent environmental problems, but in the long term, it works. And that is the way we should go.
Well, many thanks to you, Kojo Poku. We appreciate your time on today's big story. Let me get to you, Ishmael Aka. What is the way forward for us as a country?
Yeah, I think that at this time we diversify our power sources. I will recommend especially natural gas. And I think that recently, for some time now, the president made mention of 5,000 megawatts and all. I think that should be the goal of the BRA. They should have more gas, so we should open the market for private investment. Fortunately for us, ECG, there's this off-taker issues, which is being resolved. So there's a need for private investment to come in. We should, as a nation, we should have, as Kojo said, say for the next 10 years, if we are going around 10,000 megawatts, how are we achieving that? For me, I think hydro may not be the solution. Solar may not give us so much, but we can look at gas-fired thermal plants from both the public, that is VRA, and the private sector.
Thanks to you, Ishmael Aka. We really appreciate your time on today's big story. Back here in the studio, news editor Israel. And finally, let's look at the areas that you toured with the VRA. We're told you're touring some of the generating facilities. Which are those facilities, and what are they supposed to bring on board?
Right. So the two that I talked about earlier, which is the Tema Enclave one, the Tema Siemens plant, is giving 38 megawatts, and then the Tema plant, which is also going to bring on board 220 megawatts. So these are the ones that are bringing additional generation. We also went to the Pong generating station, or the Pong generating hydro station. Right. Now, over there, what they're doing is retrofitting the whole plant to make it so that we can depend on the 160 megawatts that we're getting from there. Okay. The plant has been operating for 34 years. It was first it started operating in 1981. Okay. And so it has been operating for a while. After a while, you have to just, do the retrofitting, which is what they're doing at the moment. We're also at the Akosombo hydro station, and at Akosombo we're really looking at how critical the water level is. And the situation with them is that they're now running 5 units. Even though the 5 units are not operating at the optimum capacity because of the level of water in the dam. If you look at the visuals that are available, you realize that the level of the water is really low, and it's obvious, it's critical. They keep on telling us that they can take it, or they can keep operating this even up to a level of 235 feet. Even though it's critical.
As we wait for, let's say, November to see the about 250 megawatts, there is also the possibility that this low level of the Akosombo Dam may get worse. So maybe the situation could even get worse before we get to that.
It's unlikely they will let it, go that low or get, worse than what it is now. They're hoping that the situation will turn around. I think we can see the water level begin to rise in 3 months. That's what one of the engineers told me. So they don't think that it's going to. But even then, and the Prime Minister has said already that they don't intend to rely so much on hydro generation, because it's obvious that hydro has given as much as it can already, and it's now time for thermal, for us to improve on our thermal generation, and so that hydro can take a rest.
Well, many thanks to Israeli. That's news editor Israeli with Multimedia Joy News. My name is Aisha Brian. We've been talking about some megawatts expected to be produced by the VRA, and if it comes on board, we're expecting that definitely by the end of 2015 we should end the power crisis. And we're also told by the Minister for Energy that by this weekend they could buy some crude oil to power some plants whilst we wait for the FPSO to come back on board. This is today's big story. We'll be back with Joy News Interactive.